Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Shoulders Down. Today, it is just me. I am here for a solo episode, and we are talking about why it can feel so hard to figure out what to eat. This is something that's been on my mind a lot lately because I've been thinking about how when you decide to quit dieting and embark on a journey where you're going to heal your relationship with food and become an intuitive eater, it is very freeing because you don't have to live a life controlled by calorie tracking apps or point systems and macros. And that is a beautiful thing. And at the same time, it can be hard to leave behind the structure, which feels like security. And for so many of my clients, it feels like something that they can get an A on if they follow a structure, and that feels good. And when you decide you're giving up food rules because you recognize that the rules and restriction lead to the preoccupation and the binging and the obsession and the ultimately disordered relationship with food, it can be kind of overwhelming to figure out, how do I feed myself if I'm not governing my eating by food rules? So, for example, say you come from a history of Weight Watchers, you might be completely overwhelmed with, how do I figure out what to eat if I'm not working within the framework of a certain amount of points per day? If you come from a history of intermittent fasting, you might be like, okay, I'm not used to eating whenever I get hungry. I'm used to waiting for a certain window in the day. And how do I know what to eat when I'm allowed to eat all day? If you're used to, I don't know, macro counting, you might be unsure how to structure your meals if you're not trying to hit certain macros. If you come from a history of Whole 30 or like quote unquote clean eating, you might not know what to do other than base your meals around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, whatever Whole 30 quote unquote clean eating says you're allowed to have. It can be overwhelming to approach food when you have no structure at all, when there's no rules at all. That is a beautiful, exciting, liberating feeling. And what this episode is about is, I understand that it can also feel so overwhelming. And in this episode, we're going to talk about why that is. Why can it feel so hard and overwhelming to figure out what to eat? And how do we fix this? So, in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the main reasons why it might feel so overwhelming and difficult to figure out what to eat if you are coming from a history of dieting. And we'll talk about my vision of how we fix this without turning intuitive eating into another diet. This episode's going to be on the shorter side, but it's a good one. So, here we go. Why is it so hard to figure out what to eat when you come from a history of disordered eating and you are lifting all the rules and allowing yourself unconditional permission to eat whatever you want? The first reason that I see is that if you are a person who has been dieting or restricting in some form for years or maybe even decades, you don't have a lot of practice governing your eating decisions by what sounds good to me. What am I craving? What does my body feel like it needs right now? You don't have a lot of practice doing that. You have a lot of practice outsourcing your eating decisions to an outside set of rules or metrics, whether that was Whole 30, keto, paleo, macro counting, MyFitnessPal, whatever it was. And so you're really good at that. And when it comes to just go inwards and see what sounds good, you might feel like, I have no idea. And that's to be expected because you probably don't have that much practice asking yourself, what sounds good? What do I want to eat tonight? What would feel good in my body? And like anything in life, it's a muscle that we need to strengthen and that you ultimately need to practice connecting with. And so it makes a lot of sense if it feels hard and overwhelming to figure out what to eat because you probably don't have that much practice. I remember in my own story, I often would just default to, okay, I guess I'm having like a salad because that's what I always had. But then I would have these moments of like, wait, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing eating disorder, disordered eating, relationship with food. We're doing intuitive eating. What do I want? What sounds good? And I would often get kind of stumped because I was so used to just eating based on what I felt like I was allowed to have or what would make me good. And I was not used to going inwards and saying, what sounds good right now? What would feel good? And, it took some time and practice, but it is possible to get out of that default mode of what's the lowest calorie? What's the thing that won't make me feel guilty? What's in line with the diet plan of the moment? And it's like a habit where your brain just automatically chooses food based on those types of things, but it is possible to move past it. It starts with that awareness of, oh, I'm doing that thing again where I'm governing what I eat based on an old rule. And this could even be subconscious. Often it is. It really can be sneaky. So even if you're like, oh, I'm not dieting anymore, I'm not on a diet, haven't been on one in some time, it's still something to look out for. Are you subconsciously governing your eating decisions by food rules? So that's the main reason why this feels so hard. This is what I see with clients. You don't have a lot of practice. Not to mention, like in society, I feel like we don't get a lot of practice connecting with our intuitive desires and wants, hearing ourselves and our emotions. I'm always thinking about how if we stay busy enough and like fall into productivity culture and consumerism and just like kind of go, go, go and go with the main kind of current of society, then we don't have as much time to stop and be like, well, how am I feeling? What sounds good to me? What would feel nice for me? I feel like our society kind of favors just outsourcing decisions to what we think we're supposed to do, what the person on Instagram's doing, what we feel like would look good for us to choose or to kind of perform eating in a certain way or exercising in a certain way. And yeah, I feel like we don't get as much practice going inwards and saying, what would authentically feel good for me right now? And that's beyond just food and exercise. I think that's so many things in life. What does success feel like for me? What do I want to do right now? Do I want to go out? Do I want to stay in and rest? Am I allowed to stay in and rest even if I'm in college and everyone's partying? Like, what would feel nice for me right now? So if figuring out what to eat feels hard for you and you're coming from a history of disordered eating or dieting in any way, you're so not alone. This makes sense. I think we live in a society that doesn't help us to connect with ourselves because I think about, well, if we're connected with ourselves, often there's lots of different systems that don't profit as much. For example, like if we're like, oh, I'm content, I don't need anything right now, then I don't know, you might not be as inclined to make that online order or something to buy something to fill a void. And consumerism hates that. Anyway, that's a departure from diet culture, but not really. In many ways, it's all connected in one big knot. But I say all this because if you are having a hard time figuring out what to eat, it makes sense. You probably haven't been flexing this muscle as much, not to mention the social media piece of it, where you see what other people are eating, and that can make it feel like, should I be eating like them? That can add another voice in where it makes it harder to hear yourself and really practice connecting with what your body is actually saying. Another piece of what's going on that I often find in my work with clients is clients will say something like, okay, I get that I'm supposed to listen to my intuition, but I'm having a hard time figuring out what to eat because I feel like if I listen to my intuition, the eating decisions that I'll make won't lead to me feeling very optimal or energized in my body. So, how do I reconcile that? Maybe you feel like, okay, if I listen to my intuition, I'll have like Taco Bell or McDonald's or those kind of less nutrient dense, more fun foods, which there's nothing wrong with. We love fun foods. They can serve an amazing purpose in getting our energy needs met and adding to satisfaction and pleasure and connection. And all of those are beautiful, wonderful things. And often, if we eat a lot of those foods in a row, it often doesn't feel really good or doesn't lead us to feel really energized. So, another reason why it can be so hard to make eating decisions is because you're trying to balance like what am I craving, but also what's going to make me feel good, and how do I reconcile that I'm craving McDonald's, but I want to feel energized? This is a big question that comes up with folks as they're transitioning into intuitive eating. And it's, again, so valid. You probably never really learned how to eat or think about food beyond what's going to be the lowest calories, what's going to make me lose weight. And nobody probably taught you like what's going to give me energy, what can I add to a meal to give it more staying power to help me feel more optimal. No one talks about this. I wish we learned this growing up in like health class, but we didn't. I don't know. In my health class, I feel like we learned like maybe they showed us the food pyramid and it was like the classic like don't eat too much and exercise like and it probably didn't do anything except plant disordered eating seeds in people's brains. But there are ways that we can harness objective nutrition science, not bro TikTok, none of that gym bro shit, but like, what is a carb? What is a protein? What is fat? What is fiber? How can we utilize this objective nutrition information to build satisfying meals and snacks that are going to keep us energized? How do we reconcile the situation where we're craving, say, I don't know, pasta, but we want to have a meal that's going to give us a lot of staying power, create stable blood sugar, stable energy levels, and mood? What can we do in that situation? You probably never learned this because you were too busy learning, okay, how do I burn the most calories? Or how do I eat in a way that is going to trick my stomach into thinking I'm full? Oh gosh, that just like opens up a whole box in my brain of like chew gum and drink water and ha volume eating, have a lot of fruits and vegetables, but like you probably didn't learn these important to understand aspects of nutrition that would help you to be able to figure out what to eat from an informed place of how do I balance what I'm craving while also considering how I want to feel in my body, the way I want my energy to feel, my mood after eating. Often, nobody teaches us this. When I'm talking about this with clients, they're often like, why didn't we learn this in health class or in school? Instead, we were learning like all the other random pointless stuff that they make us learn in public school. Another reason why it can feel so hard to figure out what to eat is because you have no structure to work with, right? If you're coming from a history of dieting and you say, I know that these rules are unsustainable and they lead to this mental gymnastics that ultimately leads me to have a disordered relationship with food. I need to get rid of the rules, which I am all for. That is step one of intuitive eating, right? Rejecting the diet mentality, which involves getting rid of your food rules. And then you're like, okay, but now I have nothing, no structure, nothing to go off of when I'm trying to figure out what to eat, except for like the default, which is eat low calorie, eat clean, be good, be healthy, all these different like diet forms of thinking. And so when you go to open up your pantry or your fridge or you walk into the grocery store, it can feel like I have nothing to go off of right now except for what am I craving? But as we spoke about earlier, that can even be hard because we don't have a lot of practice knowing what we're craving if we're coming from a history of outsourcing eating decisions to exterior rules and metrics. So a lot of the people I work with are like, I hate that like I have no structure. And that's so fair. I'm not here to like give you a meal plan or give you another set of food rules that you're going to make into a diet, but I hear you that some structure would be helpful scaffolding to transition you into intuitive eating without feeling like you're free falling into nothing and have nothing to grab onto when thinking about your eating decisions. So there we have it. This is this kind of conundrum of like dieting and disordered eating makes eating decisions hard in the sense that like all kinds of things are off limits and you're constantly doing the mental math and you're constantly thinking, okay, if I eat that, how do I cancel it out? And am I going to be good today and carry the one? Okay, that was a good day. That's exhausting and hard, but you have some kind of structure where you feel like I could check myself against. Was I good? Was I bad? I mean, good and bad is arbitrary, right? Like it doesn't mean that it's like a good structure, but it gives you something. Often there can be a sense of safety in, okay, I know my calorie limit for the day or my macros or the foods that are good and the foods that are bad, and there can be a real sense of safety in that. Now, I'm not saying I can like condone that or recommend that, but I understand it. I understand that for so many people, we turn to dieting or food rules because life can feel so uncertain and it can feel nice. It can give us the illusion of control of having a set of rules to follow. It can help us feel a sense of certainty in otherwise uncertain times. It can help us to feel like we're doing something to take care of ourselves, even if we realize that this is actually leading me to feel more mentally unwell and disordered and dysregulated. It can give the illusion of I'm trying to do something right now. But then the other side of this is, okay, if I get rid of my food rules and go on this brave journey to creating peace with food, becoming an intuitive eater, as I said earlier, that is freeing, incredible, can be so beautiful, life-changing, and the truth is it can be overwhelming. Maybe it is for you, maybe it isn't. Many of the clients I work with at first are like feeling a mix of excitement and overwhelm. And so eating becomes hard in a different way, where it's like this kind of nebulous feeling of like, am I doing it right? How do I know? Am I getting a good grade on intuitive eating? How do I even know what to eat or how to plan meals and snacks? If I have zero rules or guardrails, that can be hard in a different way. And we talked about some of the reasons why that's hard. In this episode, we talked about how it can be hard because you don't have a lot of practice. If you're someone who's spent years or decades outsourcing your eating decisions to outside rules and metrics, we talked about how it can be hard because you have to balance what am I craving with how do I want to feel, and maybe nobody taught you how to adjust your meal to create the energy levels that you want or the staying power that you want the meal to have. Unfortunately, this isn't something most of us are taught growing up, these basic nutrition information without all the fear mongering and the finger wagging and the like untrue, hyperbolized social media myths about carbs and protein and fat and all that. You maybe just never learned any of this or never learned it without it being objective, as is the case for a lot of folks I work with. They've heard some stuff from social media or from some friend at the gym, but often they haven't just like gotten what are the objective pieces of information I need here to build satisfying meals and snacks. We talked about how this can be hard because a lot of people like structure and it can feel overwhelming to go from so much structure and rigidity in dieting to okay, you can have whatever you want, have fun, though that's beautiful and freeing, it can feel overwhelming and it can feel like you're free falling, and that can feel unsafe for some folks. So it is so valid if figuring out what to eat feels hard. And I promised in the beginning of this episode that I would start talking to you about how to fix it. Well, I have been thinking about this a lot lately. It's been something that's on my mind. And what's come through for me is if figuring out what to eat when you come from a history of dieting and disordered eating, if that feels overwhelming for you, then you probably need some kind of gentle structure or scaffolding to help you transition into intuitive eating. Now, this isn't a set of rules that's going to be triggering and disordered, but it's something to give you a sense of, okay, I have some questions I can ask or some kind of framework I can follow here. And intuitive eating does give you that framework, the greater 10 principles, but in terms of when it comes specifically of what do I eat in this moment? I'm hungry, here's how I'm feeling, this is what the I'm how hungry I am, or this is like the experience that I want to have in my body after eating. What do I eat to achieve that? I think the way that we fix this is a gentle structure or scaffolding. And I am so excited to share that I have created that structure for you. This is like, I can't believe I haven't done this sooner because I have run into this. And I guess it takes having done this work for some time to see what are the things people are constantly bringing up. What are the gaps in support that I'm hearing about over and over again so that I can then create tools for you to help you move through those difficulties. So, with that said, I am so excited to share that I have created a workshop called What to Eat, appropriately named, as the point of this workshop is going to be to teach you how to figure out what to eat when you leave disordered eating and diet culture and transition into intuitive eating. Now, this workshop is going to be on August 10th. And that's a Monday. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Pacific or 6 p.m. Eastern. So you can either sign up and join us live. I would love to have you in class live. We'll have a live Q&A session and some interactive pieces, or you're welcome to sign up. And if you can't make it, you can just get access to the recording of the class. So class is until August 10th. However, when you sign up now, you get an immediate ebook sent to your inbox, and that ebook is called What to Eat. It's like 50 pages of tools and education and this really exciting thing I'm calling the intuitive eating decision tree, which is this exact gentle scaffolding, this framework that's going to help you when you're standing in front of the fridge at 6:12 p.m. and you're hungry and you know you want to feel energized and good after dinner, but you also want to eat something satisfying that you're craving. How do we navigate that situation? It literally gives you this decision tree, which is like, starts with what are you craving? And then it asks you, do you want to optimize your energy? If you do, then you go this way. And here are the questions you ask yourself. It gives you several examples of what this looks like in action. I think there's like 8 or 9 different examples in there. Plus the most frequently asked questions, problems people run into when trying to figure out what to eat. It's an amazing, amazing resource. So you get that ebook sent to your inbox right away so that you don't have to wait till class on August 10th to start feeling better and start feeling supported in figuring out what to eat. And then in class, we'll go even deeper with it and you'll have access to me to ask questions. We're going to do some live workshopping so you can walk away with some clear meals for yourself, some clear examples of how to use the intuitive eating decision tree in your own life, especially during the meals that you find yourself getting stuck on, whatever those like tricky meals are for you. I am clearly so excited about this workshop. And if listening to this episode today, if you're like, yeah, I do think it's overwhelming to figure out how to feed myself when I'm coming from a history of such rules and restrictions. Maybe you're even like, you know what? I think this has been holding me back from seriously jumping in with 2 feet to the world of intuitive eating because I'm scared. I'm scared to allow myself unconditional permission to eat without something, without some kind of structure to help me figure out what would feel good in my body. What am I craving right now? And that's so valid. If that is you, you definitely want to sign up for this workshop. It's going to be amazing. I have already started putting the slides together and making the ebook was so fun. I can't wait for you to get that in your inbox. You will not want to miss this. I think it's one of the most practical, tangible workshops I've ever taught, and I'm so excited to be offering it. So the workshop is $47. However, for podcast listeners, so that's you, you can use code podcast at checkout and you can get the workshop for $40. So for $7 off. I'm so excited for this workshop. You can head to the link in the show notes of this episode to enroll. And again, don't forget to use code podcast at checkout, all capital podcast. You'll see it in the show notes. And you will be able to enroll and get immediate access to that What to Eat ebook right to your inbox while you wait for class to start, which will be on August 10th. It'll be one 75-minute live session with opportunity for Q&A. Again, I said we'll workshop some things so you'll leave with actual pieces of information that will be able to support you in your life. We'll do some workshopping of your most difficult meals and snacks, and it's going to be so value packed. You're going to love it. So you can head to the link in the show notes, sign up for What to Eat, and I will see you on August 10th, or I will see you in your inbox when you watch the recording. That is all for today's episode. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, I hope you will sign up for the workshop via the link in the show notes. That is it, and I will talk to you in our next episode.